buenas noches, sean todas y todos bienvenidos a una edición más de Breaking the Ice. Hoy tenemos unos artistas, pero nivel, ustedes no saben lo que les esperan. Yonder, ¿cómo estás?
Todo bien, Alberto. ¿Vos qué tal? Bienvenido. Ahora sí, como presentador.
Así es, así es, así es. Y bueno, para no, porque ya empezamos un poquito tarde, para no
Ujú.
perder más tiempo, vamos a presentar a los invitados de hoy. ¿Te parece, Yonder?
Me parece perfectísimo.
Ok, nuestro primer invitado, él trabaja en storyboards y creando también, más en general como un story artist para diferentes medios y diferentes películas, y series también de Marvel y de otras producciones, como por ejemplo Moon Knight, Spider-Man No Way Home, Ghostbusters Afterlife, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, WandaVision, la trilogía nueva de Spider-Man, El Rey León, y si puedo seguir aquí toda la noche contando el resumen de que él tiene en cuanto a películas y cine. Así que un gran aplauso para Phil Langdon. ¡Woo!
You doing?
Hi Phil, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Ok. Nuestro siguiente invitado, también trabaja en arte conceptual, ha trabajado, por ejemplo, ya está a punto de salir, Guardianes de la Galaxia Volumen 3, Avatar, The Way of Water, Black Adam, para It, para Wonder Woman, Ready Player One, y también para una película que estamos esperando mucho, que es Transformers Rise of the Beast. Un gran aplauso para Jared Krevinsky. ¡Woo! Hey, how you doing, Jared?
Very well. Hope
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Yeah.
Finally, last but not least, de último tenemos a un artista visual que trabaja en diferentes animaciones de Marvel Studios Animation, ha trabajado con diferentes de personajes como Black Panther, en Guardianes de la Galaxia, Blade, etc. Un gran aplauso para Omar Gómez. ¡Woo!
Hey, how you guys doing? Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here, Omar. Thank you so much, all of you guys, for being here. And we want to talk a little bit about your experiences. All right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Awesome. Démosle, Yandere, ¿cuál es la primera pregunta que tenemos para ellos?
Bueno, básicamente para ir entrando ahí en materia, queremos que nos cuenten eh, en qué consiste cada uno de sus trabajos, tanto el concept art, los storyboards o el custom concept art, que es como en lo que ustedes se desarrollan.
So for the people that don't know what do you do, if you can tell us a little bit, what are your areas of expertise? What are you working on? Also, what is that you work on in the movie industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to school for 4 years for visual development, which is overall, the process of, creating a set project. So I emphasize in character design. So I'm very fresh in the industry. I just I finished at Marvel Studios, and I was, able to, touch base on like some of the stuff that I wanted to work on as a character designer. So definitely, I would say like character design is what I'm passionate about and what I'm looking forward to bringing to this industry.
Awesome. Omar nos cuenta de que él estudió durante 4 años lo que es su carrera actual y acaba de terminar ciertos proyectos para Marvel Animation en la parte de diseño de personajes, y que ahí fue donde descubrió que su pasión y lo que él quiere seguir haciendo durante su carrera y enfocarse es definitivamente el diseño de nuevos personajes. Así que me parece increíble. What about you, Phil?
Yeah, so I'm a freelance storyboard artist. I started off in animation in 1996 and then eventually transitioned over into storyboards, doing short films, commercials, things like that. I did some animation on Family Guy and eventually ended up on some feature animation, and then sort of worked my way into the live action side of the business. And now I primarily work on just kind of big budget features. It's just I think I've been really lucky, and right time, right place with the right skills, and it's just kind of turned into this
Eh,
you know,
yeah.
over time. But so I work. I don't really work for studios specifically. I work project to project.
Mhm.
So sometimes it's Marvel, sometimes it's Sony, sometimes it's haven't been Warner Brothers in a while. Disney does a lot.
Mhm.
You know, and I primarily work with directors now. So depending on what the director is doing, like John Watts and I have worked together now, like on 6 projects.
Mhm.
In fact, I just saw him the other night for a wrap party for his film that he's making with Brad Pitt and George Clooney. So
Wow.
I storyboarded that last summer.
That's awesome.
That's super cool.
Nice. Nice.
It was fun because I storyboarded a bunch of scenes, and then they invited me to set to watch the scenes being shot. So I got to actually watch the actors act, which was
Ah,
that was really cool to see, and it was a good experience. So yeah, it's been fun being able to work with John, and we just worked on a Star Wars show that'll come out next December that he
oh,
wrote,
wow.
writing partner, and directed, and so it's gonna be an interesting year for that kind of stuff, you know.
Awesome. That is really, really awesome.
Yeah.
Bueno, Phil nos cuenta de que él ha estado en la industria trabajando en animación desde 1996. Él trabaja haciendo los storyboards para diferentes producciones. Antes trabajaba para diferentes cosas de animación, como por ejemplo Padre de Familia y otras industrias más de tal lado de animación, pero que los años lo fueron llevando a la parte de live action, ¿verdad? Y que él siente que ha sido mucha suerte lo que ha tenido durante estos años, porque de tener el talento correcto en el momento correcto, en el tiempo correcto, no trabaja para un estudio en específico, sino que trabaja, por decirlo así, por proyectos que le van saliendo. Ha trabajado para diferentes casas como Marvel, como Sony, como Disney, Warner Bros., etcétera. Y que ahorita es más que todo que lo buscan los directores, porque por ejemplo, con John Watts, que algunos lo recordarán, es el director de las películas de Spider-Man de Tom Holland, ha trabajado en 6 proyectos con él. Inclusive hace poco estuvo con él, lo invitaron a una fiesta de cierre de filmación de una película en que están trabajando con Brad Pitt y George Clooney, que entonces él hizo los storyboards de esas películas y tuvo la suerte que lo invitaran a la filmación de esos storyboards, de cuando se grabaron esas escenas, entonces pudo ver a los actores interpretando lo que él ya había dibujado. Y que también, como por ejemplo con John, está trabajando en un corto para Star Wars que va a salir a finales de año, entonces que ha tenido demasiada suerte en la industria. That is an amazing story, really. And what about you, Jared?
Yeah, I came to this later in my life, so I didn't get started until I was 28 when I went back to a school called Noman, where I learned. I went through the generalist program. I didn't really go in thinking like I'm going to be this and I'm going to do this. I just knew that I wanted to learn visual effects. I have a degree in theater and a minor in film study and film study and fine art. So I look at my theater degree as kind of like a communications degree.
Mm-hmm.
So that has allowed me to go back and teach at Noman. So after I graduated the program, while I was doing it, I got an internship at a company called Aaron Sims Creative, and I worked there for 7 years as a character. Started as a junior, worked my way up to senior, and then supervisor. And then I got the itch to go freelance, and with Aaron's blessing, I went and freelanced. From there, I worked for like Legacy Effects, Jim Henson Company, Blur, companies like that, and it's been very, very cool. I didn't really think this was like possible. In my life, and now I get to make monsters and creatures for a living. So I feel like Phil said, right place, right time, and maybe just a pinch of talent, in there somewhere. But I feel incredibly lucky, and it's just like the coolest job. It's ridiculous. It's very fun.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Bueno, ya nos cuenta que él empezó tarde en esto, que fue que sino hasta los 28 años que se decidió meterse a estudiar esta parte de lo que es animación y especialmente efectos especiales, que es lo que él le gustaba y lo que quería. Que tiene ya un grado en teatro y en estudio de filmación, pero que eso no era lo que estaba ejerciendo en ese momento, sino que más bien eso le ayudó como para, por ejemplo, ser profesor después. Entonces, en el mismo colegio donde estudió las artes, efectos visuales, fue donde después volvió a enseñar. Una vez salido del colegio ya tenía todas estas bases. Trabajó para un estudio llamado Aaron Simmons Created, donde tuvo como una beca, por decirlo así, una pasantía, donde empezó en niveles básicos, en primero junior, luego senior, luego supervisor, y con la bendición de Aaron lo dejaron salir a ya ser freelance, ¿verdad? A poder trabajar en otras cosas, y ahí fue para Legacy FX, para otras cosas. Entonces, que le encanta, por ejemplo, que trabaja para que su medio de subsistir es crear criaturas y monstruos, ¿verdad? Entonces, que como decía Phil, es una cuestión de tal vez de mucha suerte, de combinar lo que es estar en el momento correcto, a la hora correcta y con una pizca de talento, logra vivir esta vida que le parece que es genial, que todavía le parece que es como un sueño hecho realidad. Those are three amazing stories, really, really, really amazing. And I have a very personal, not personal, but very tricky question. What has been the most challenging work that you have done, each one of you? ¿Cuál ha sido el trabajo más retador que han tenido cada uno de ustedes?
Yeah, I'd have to say the most challenging. Like, are you talking about like work piece that we've done, or just like event, or
whatever you want, like the one that make you say, "Oh man, this is hard."
Definitely. I could say that I think the most challenging event that happened during my career, but also is like I'm so appreciative of it, was I was able to get Marvel Studios while I was in school. So I was finishing off my last 3 months of school, so in the last semester, and I packed this semester with 5 classes just so I could really finish it and get on to the next chapter of my life. So I was balancing my finals and also balancing working with Marvel Studios, and it was super challenging, but it also taught me how to really appreciate the time that I have to prioritize things with work and then with school and personal life. So I feel like now that I've done that, I can accomplish anything,
Yeah, I totally understand. Nos cuenta Omar de que su reto más grande en toda su carrera ha sido de que cuando estaba ya en los últimos 3 meses de la universidad, ya al punto de salir de la universidad, ya bloque completo, se mataba por decir, ya salimos de esto, ya cerramos en este cuatrimestre y ya nos vamos. En ese momento Marvel lo llama para trabajar, entonces tiene que balancear el estar full en la universidad con su vida personal, con el trabajo de Marvel. Entonces era básicamente hacer malabares entre las 3 cosas, y que siento que donde ya pasó por eso, dice que si pude con esa época de mi vida, puedo con cualquier cosa. Jared, Phil, what about you?
You go ahead, Jared.
Well, I finished a project not too long ago that was very challenging. Without going into any details, because they're filming now, it was a very personal project, and it was a monster that touched on something that had happened in my life, and so it was very personal, and I was just trying to get through it, and I had to talk to the director, who I was a friend with, but he was also he's also the writer and the director, and someone I respect greatly, and I had to have a conversation with him and be like, look, man, this kind of is hitting close to home, and so we just had to get through it and have that conversation. And I had to give him what he wanted, which was difficult for me.
Mhm.
But when he saw it, he realized, that I was correct, and so we just had that conversation. It was horror is deeply personal as a genre,
Mhm.
and it often represents personal things in our lives, and that affect us very deeply. And so to sometimes have to go there emotionally, to give the client what they are asking for.
That
That was a very challenging situation.
I have never thought about it, and now that you say it,
Yeah.
man, that is so true.
It was deeply affecting, and it was probably one of the hardest weeks of my life of just working on that project.
Wow, wow, wow,
Yeah,
wow.
but we made it through it, and
And
we're
you're here.
yeah, we're here, and they were very happy with the result, and I was happy with the result, so it worked out. But like we had to do some digging in the trenches.
Right, right, right. Bueno, nos cuenta Jared de que hace poco acaba de terminar un proyecto que no nos puede contar muchos detalles porque de hecho están grabando o en este momento están filmándolo, que es un proyecto un poco personal, un monstruo que eh, toca algo que pasó muy, muy en su vida personal. Entonces el director de esta película, que también es el escritor, tuvo que tener una conversación seria con él diciéndole, mira, esto que estamos trabajando, esto que estamos haciendo, es muy cercano a mí o me llega muy cerca a mí, por estas y estas razones, ¿verdad? Tuvieron que tener esa conversación difícil, pero al final él es un profesional y tiene que dar al director lo que él que estaba pidiendo. Nos dice que al ser una cinta de horror, el horror es algo que a veces, el género de horror es algo que a veces toca muy personalmente, muy, muy adentro, ¿verdad? Y que llegara a esas instancias emocionales, porque tal vez es algo que usted se puede relacionar mucho, de algo que pasó en su vida, eh, le costó mucho, que fue una semana muy difícil de trabajo, al final pudo entregarle lo que el director quería y cuando se lo entregó le dijo, mira, vos tenías razón, porque obviamente él tenía razón porque ya lo había vivido en otros momentos. Entonces, al final todo salió bien. El cliente estaba feliz con los resultados. Está aquí contándonos esta historia, pero que sí fue una semana muy, muy ardua para él de trabajo. Llegar a hacer eso por su conexión personal que tenía. And Phil, what about you?
Yeah, I think I've been around long enough now where I've had multiple challenging moments. And I starting in '96, I started when everything was hand drawn animation.
Mhm.
It was just the beginning of digital animation and Pixar and all that. So, and they were using it, but it wasn't like now where there's no more hand drawn. Well, there's hand drawn animation, but it's much less now than ever.
Mhm.
So I was kind of on track to becoming an animator. That's what my goal was. And I got to do a little bit on Iron Giant. I did little bits and pieces here. If you remember a raccoon going through under the water, I got to animate the raccoon, and that's my little claim to fame on that film. Otherwise, you wouldn't know that I worked on it. But anyway, but then the big shift started to happen, and some of the hand-drawn movies were failing at the box office. And it was just a big excuse for executives to say, okay, we're going to get rid of hand-drawn and switch over to digital completely. And so it was like a bloodbath for a couple of years where it was just a turnover of people like scrambling to retrain as digital animators. And then people like me who were kind of low man on the totem pole, I wasn't getting to do the free digital animation classes that studios were offering and all that. So I kind of started thinking, okay, what am I going to do? I love to draw. And so I basically just thought, and I had been seeing artwork that artists have been doing for movies, for live action films. And I thought, oh, I want to do that, And I had already been kind of thinking about storyboards. Like I worked with Mark Andrews, if you know who he is. And so he co-directed Brave and a bunch of other things. So and he storyboarded on Iron Giant. And I went to him and I asked him, like, can you teach a storyboard class at the studio? Because I want to learn how to do storyboard. So he did. He taught like a 2-day seminar or something at the studio, which I got to do. And I don't know if I was even allowed to do it, but I kind of just did it. I didn't care. I kind of have a history of just doing what I want to do sometimes. So I think I got in trouble for it too, but I didn't care. And so that was my first introduction to really learning storyboards, because I went to UCLA animation, and at the time it wasn't the most robust animation program. So I came out and I had to take classes at the Animation Guild to finally get my first job in the business, because fine art wasn't going to help me in that area. So that was also another challenge, like right out of college, and which is a whole story to tell one day. That's an interesting one. Living in Hollywood with no money, and oh boy, back then it was very different than it is now. Yeah, so I retrained, and then I kind of ran out of money. My wife and I ran out of money, kind of went into some debt, and then she's from Dublin, Ireland, so we ended up moving to Ireland to try to make a life there. So I lived there for 2 years doing short films, commercials, and the great thing was at the time there was no storyboard competition. So I was kind of getting jobs doing commercials, and the short films didn't pay anything, but the commercials did. I was kind of building a portfolio, like rebuilding my career. And but we couldn't quite get ahead because we had this big debt to pay off. And so I had a connection from when I had worked on The Simpsons for a couple of seasons. And that's another story to tell. So I ended up contacting her, and she was looking for people to staff up on Family Guy, which had been canceled, but because it did so well in DVD sales, they brought it back again. And it's been back ever since. So I didn't know much about Family Guy. I hadn't watched it much. And then turns out it was really funny. So I got a job doing that on revisions, story revisions. And within a few months, I did a test and moved up to storyboards. But even then, it was like I was still like, do I want to do live action? I wanted to get back into live action because I really liked it. And then my whole career has been about training and retraining and learning new things constantly, because the industry changes every so often, and you have to be ready for it. And it's about to go through it again. It's at the very beginning stages, really, of a big transformation, and we don't know where it's going to go. With AI, and there's a lot of fear with all of that. So my feeling is, if you have a really good skill set and you have a lot of connections, you can sort of weather that storm and figure out how to integrate into it. But it's not going to be easy for people necessarily. I mean, it might not be bad, or it could be really bad, and you have to figure it out. And then on top of that, there's a writer's strike coming up. So anyway, I'm getting off of the subject. But get to the question of, well, I'll let you go before I go down that road.
No. I'm saying that when at the beginning, when you were saying about the changing between the hand draw animation and digital animation and all the stuff, and you have been retraining yourself all over these years, because the change right now is really, really fast. I remember that, for example, many years ago, when, for example, the movies went from silent movies to sound movies, right? There was this big hit as well, like changing everything, redoing everything. Like the movie stars from silent films couldn't make it to sound
it's
films,
the same
right?
thing. Yeah.
But that was a big change in a longer period of time, like, I don't know, 20 years. Yeah. And now the change is like every 6 months, right?
Yeah, it's pretty big changes, and it does happen quicker with technology. But again, like, because of what I went through back in 99 to 2003 or whatever, I mean, some of it comes from fear. Like, I don't want to go through that again.
Yeah.
PTSD from it. But you have to be ready for those things all the time, you know. And you carry it through with you, everything you do. You're always trying to learn something new.
Right.
Otherwise, you could get left behind. People did get left behind. I know people still who never got back into business once their career changed. So,
Right.
like, it's a tough one, and that's a challenge, and they do happen. Like, I was joking, but I've hit a number of those challenges over the years where you're just kind of going, "Oh, what am I doing? Like, where's this going to go? How do I survive this next thing?" So, yeah.
Totally, claro. Bueno, Fit nos cuenta de que ha habido muchos cambios en su larga carrera, de que cuando empezó en el 96 era más o menos el inicio del cambio de la animación a mano a la animación digital, con todo esto de Pixar, Toy Story, todo esto que estaba empezando en aquel momento. De hecho, muchas películas animadas de aquella época que eran animadas en manera manual, con dibujos a mano, fallaban en la taquilla, y entonces eso era básicamente la excusa que los productores decían, bueno, ya no sirve la animación a mano, vamos a cambiarnos a animación digital. Y él, que venía empezando, saliendo de la universidad, y era muy difícil en ese momento aprender animación digital, no era como ahora que hay cursos por todo lado. Entonces, un buen amigo de él, Mark Andrews, que es director de Valiente y también ayuda en Iron Giant, él dijo, mira, ustedes nos podrían venir a mi colegio a dar un seminario sobre animación digital. Yo, sí, claro, con mucho gusto. No era algo que se suponía que debía hacer, ¿verdad? Porque no pidió permiso ni nada, pero que él está acostumbrado a mejor pedir perdón que pedir permiso, pero que eso le ayudó a por lo menos tener unas bases, a sentar unas bases para poder seguir aprendiendo ese paso a la animación digital. Dice que nos tiene un montón de otras historias que podríamos durar toda la noche aquí hablando de cosas difíciles que ha pasado, pero que son historias más largas, como por ejemplo llegar a Hollywood sin dinero. Pero que la clave ha sido para él entrenarse una y otra vez en diferentes áreas. Su esposa, por ejemplo, es de Dublín, de Irlanda, entonces ellos se fueron para allá a tratar de reconstruir su carrera, ¿verdad? Trabajaba en pequeños comerciales, en pequeños cortos, en filmes, en animaciones, etcétera. Los comerciales eran los que más pagaban, pero entonces ahí fue donde más o menos fue volviendo a salir adelante, hasta que uno de sus contactos de cuando trabajó en Los Simpsons le dijo que Padre de Familia iba a ser relanzado, que ocupaban una mano extra, que si quería él ayudar con unas revisiones, y dijo, claro que sí, que ni sabía que era en ese momento Padre de Familia, pero que claro, que con mucho gusto. Y ahí fue donde volvió más al lado de la industria, de este lado de Occidente. Y que su consejo es siempre estar entrenándose, porque siempre las cosas cambian, nada se queda quieto. Más en estas épocas actuales siempre hay un cambio constante, y que hay mucha gente que se queda, que no es sencillo, que se queda atrás, que mucha gente con la que él trabajaba ya salieron de la industria porque no quisieron adaptarse a los cambios. Entonces es algo que combina las habilidades que tú tienes con aprender cosas nuevas, y que todo eso es un reto en sí mismo. Entonces que el reto siempre es estarse reinventando, básicamente. Ese es su mayor reto.
Y es que las
Así
tres
es.
historias han sido bastante buenas, porque
Sí.
cada uno desde su perspectiva nos dice qué tan difícil ha sido. Y no me imagino lo que es llegar a Hollywood sin dinero. Es muy, muy complicado.
Así
Y
es, así
todavía
es.
más sin argollas, porque todos ellos han empezado desde abajo, han salido
Ujú,
de sus diferentes universidades y han ido
ujú.
poco
Subiendo.
a poco, ahora escalando.
Ujú.
Entonces, bueno, yo quiero hacer una pregunta a Omar, eh, porque sabemos que a él le gusta mucho como la biodiversidad, y en nuestro país, pues nosotros tenemos muchísimo de eso. Entonces, a mí me gustaría saber qué es lo que le gusta o qué es lo que lo inspira a hacer su trabajo dentro de todo este tema de biodiversidad, de naturaleza.
So John is saying that first, before the question, that all your three stories are very different stories, but all with the same thing in concept, that you all struggling from down below, because you didn't have some platform to start, right? You started from below, and then you were growing up a little bit, and another step, and it's amazing to hear that all of you from those different backgrounds have the same kind of a point, right, between all the stories. And for Omar, We know that you love to work with biodiversity, and Costa Rica, our country, is known for his huge biodiversity and love for national scenes and all that stuff. So, what motivates you to work around biodiversity and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say just because, me being West African, I love, incorporating as much as I can for stuff that I know and, that I've seen, growing up. And I really think it's important for everybody to see that, wherever they're from or, whatever they represent. I think it's important for them to see themselves in entertainment, because that's what they're watching for, is to relate to it, to have those experiences that will keep them loving the content and franchises that are to come. So I really think it's important, and I try to even branch out as much as I can from my own like culture and where I'm from to other people's stuff, and see if I could do something that could relate to other ethnicities or other cultures. And I think that's the funnest part about animation, because um, it's so open to the possibilities that you can create with stuff like that.
Awesome, awesome. Bueno, Omar nos cuenta que, bueno, él por ser africano también le gusta sentir que hay esa representación de su propia gente, de su propia cultura en diferentes medios de entretenimiento, de que la gente pueda identificarse, de que no todo es para un cierto tipo de público, sino que se puede trabajar en diferentes áreas, en diferentes culturas. Y a él le gusta también expandirse en la mayor cantidad de ramas posibles. Aunque tal vez no sea en su propia cultura, trabajar en representar otras etnias, otras latitudes, otras culturas, para que la gente pueda identificarse, que eso es la parte muy bonita de la animación, de que usted puede expandir sus horizontes a muchas otras áreas y no solo en un solo nicho o en un solo lugar. And, well, for Jared, I have another question. I'm going to do it in Spanish. Para Jared, que sabemos que eres un amante, obviamente, de la creación de criaturas para estos cortos y largometrajes. ¿Qué es lo que te inspira cuando tienes que hacer una criatura absolutamente de la nada? Jared, we know that you love and you work on creating creatures and in shorts and other movies and films and everything. What do you inspire to create something that is non-existent? Like, for example, they just give you an idea and then you have to create something from nothing. What is your inspiration on that?
Yeah, I think that the thing that excites me the most are questions, asking and answering questions, and making choices, and seeing the result of those choices on screen. It was a drug, and I needed more. The first time I saw a creature I designed it was a commercial for DirecTV, and it was just a troll monster that goes through a city, and he needs milk for his baby, so he grabs a cow and takes it home to feed his giant troll baby. So I designed the troll and the baby, and I saw the commercial, and because it's commercial, the turnover is very quick. So I saw it within a couple months of working on it, and I was hooked. I was like, oh my god, this is the best. Like, whatever comes out of my brain, they put out there, and it became very exciting. And then the next thing I got, and it got bigger and bigger, and I kept just like wanting more of it. It was just very exciting to get to be a part of it, to have some say in the process, and it also helped me learn the process as well, and being able to communicate various aspects of creatures, from like, here's a sketch to like, here's how it's going to animate. Here's how it would look if a person is wearing it. It's just very exciting to be a part of the process and see the final result. It's very fun.
Awesome, awesome. Nos dice que lo que le gusta es en la parte de las preguntas, cómo sacar, que te dan la idea, entonces él empieza a preguntar y tomar decisiones, como qué decisiones haría esto, qué cosas haría esto, qué pasa si esto, y que a partir de ahí él ya se va formando la idea, que entonces sacar esas preguntas y esas decisiones, esas respuestas es como una droga para él, porque es lo que le encanta para ya ponerse creativo y sacarlo. Uno de sus primeros trabajos en un comercial para DirecTV, que era un troll, que tenía que alimentar a su pequeño trollcito. Entonces él salía, buscaba una vaca y la traía de regreso para darle leche a su bebé. Entonces que fue algo muy rápido que le hizo rápidamente, le dijeron la idea y ya la dibujó. Y como era un corto de comercial, en cuestión de meses ya estaba en pantalla y cuando lo vio, lo amó, le dijo, esto es increíble, quiero seguir haciendo más de esto, me encanta ver mi idea, mi trabajo puesto en escena o puesto en pantalla y tener algo que decir durante el proceso, ¿verdad? Digamos, saber que él puede tomar una parte de decisión, digamos, como cuál va a ser el aspecto, cómo se va a animar, cómo se va a ver si alguien hace esto con él o si hace esta otra cosa con él. Entonces, tener ese poder de poder influenciar un poquito lo que es el resultado final es algo que a él le encanta y poder transformar esa idea en algo real, en algo que existe, que él, es algo que él ama y que se siente muy afortunado para eso.
Demasiado chiva, de verdad, y demasiado gracioso. O sea, me imagino verlo a él y decir, ¡yo lo hice! Y ver estar en esa posición, ¿verdad?
Sí, sí, sí.
Eh, para mí, hacerle esta pregunta a Phil es un gran honor porque yo me crié con Spider-Man, yo fui uno de esos chiquillos que gritó hace poco viendo Spider-Man en el cine
Uh-huh.
y sobre todo cuando tuvimos a no uno, sino a tres Spider-Man en la Estatua de la Libertad. Entonces, la pregunta que yo deseo hacerle a Phil ahorita es, ¿cómo fue ese proceso de trabajar en una de las películas que los fans esperamos tanto y que quisimos tanto cuando salió en cine, que fue Spider-Man No Way Home, y sobre todo hacer todos esos storyboards de los tres Peter o los tres Spider-Man juntos, porque no sé qué tan permitido tenía él en su momento hacer, mira, sí, tres Spider-Man, tome de una. Y cómo fue al final ver eso.
Mhm. Okay, okay. So Phil, John was saying that this is he's been honored to make you this question because he's a huge Spider-Man fan. He's one of the guys that screamed when he saw No Way Home, right? So he wants to know how was your experience working in such a beloved film for the fans in general, having all those three Spider-Mans, and if you have to do those storyboards with the all three Peters in the Statue of Liberty and everything, or if it was something, what was your like? Oh my God, I'm gonna have. How do you handle inside yourself that you gonna have all three Peters in the same time and and you can say anything?
Well, the thing with No Way Home is each Spider-Man was different for me. So the first one I had a full script to work off of, and they would give me specific sequences to do. And then the second film, they gave me a half a page of script for the entire film, and they would
Wow.
pitch ideas to me, and then I would just go and storyboard it. So they pitched the Venice scene with the big Hydro Man in Venice. That I storyboarded that one for about 2 months with basically no script, and I would just talk about it with John. We'd go back and forth, and I'd pitch him ideas. He would pitch me ideas, and then I would just draw it, and it sort of turned into this thing, which is funny because I storyboarded half of it with these two thieves on a moped in Venice, and then John came back to me and said, "Yeah, I had to cut out half of the sequence because they don't have mopeds in Venice because it's just all water, you know." Anyway, but the third one, I had no script. We were just trying to figure that one out, and a lot of stuff that I did didn't actually make it into the film. I mean, if anybody has followed my Instagram in the last few months, you'll see I posted some stuff about Mysterio, and I actually found some new information about that scene, but I won't repeat it here because it's a conversation between me and the director. But but Mysterio was supposed to be in the third movie, and then some stuff changed. I don't know all the details, but basically they cut him out of the film. And so, but a lot of the stuff I was doing was almost kind of like blue sky storyboards. Before that, when we were making that film, when we started making that film, Spider-Verse had already come out like a couple of months before. And, there's been so many Spider-Man movies and shows that have been done. It's like, what do you do that's new and fresh? The comic book world, there's so much stuff that's been done. It's like, it's easy to repeat things over and over. And, you start repeating stuff and you're like, oh, we've seen that, we've seen this. It's happened to me a number of times where I've worked on different Marvel shows and I'll do a sequence and then they'll tell me to stop halfway through because they'll be like, oh, that sequence, we have a similar one in Doctor Strange or something like that. And you're going, oh, okay. And, you've done 2 weeks on it. You just go, that's in the bin. So, and you start over on something new. So, it's just this sort of never-ending process. But on No Way Home, I didn't do anything on the Statue of Liberty. I didn't even draw the other Peters because by the time I was on that film for, was it a year or not quite a year? I can't remember how long now. It was for a bit. Yeah, I mean, it was through COVID and everything. So, once I leave a film, it doesn't come out for maybe another year. Because I start usually 2 years before a film will come out. So I don't know. And then, then I find other work and I usually don't have time to go back onto a film. And so I don't know. I'd have to ask him actually how that film exactly was put together. I know that they use a lot of previs. So they'll use like the third floor and places like that. And they'll kind of figure things out. So there's always multiple board artists on these films. I've just been the only one that's worked on all three of the Tom Holland ones. And some of that's just been luck and timing also. Like I haven't been on other projects when they called me, or I was coming off of a project when they'd call me or something like that. So it just kind of worked out. Yeah, so let me get back to the original question. What was your original question about some of that stuff about the Statue of Liberty or about those sequences and how they're made?
Yeah, no, the only question was if you work on those and also your point of view, like, okay, I work in this amazing movie that so much people love, right? So how do you feel about that?
Oh, that's actually really fun. So we would crack up because I'll go on to YouTube and I'll read like fan theories. And I'll go on. I love that kind of stuff. Like what's the point of working on this stuff if you don't go and read what the fans are interested in, what they're talking about? That's so much fun. And it's really fun knowing that you have knowledge that they don't have, but then reading where they take it. Like No Way Home, people would make up, before that movie came out, people were making up the craziest theories about what was going to happen and who was going to do what in the film and which characters are going to show up in the Sinister Six and all this business. And there were sometimes I would text the co-producer. I'd be like, I would send them a YouTube video and go, check this out, or check out this comment that somebody made. And I'm like, this is a pretty fun idea, actually.
It was like, you have to put this, man. You got to look at the put it.
No, there was a couple of times where they're like, that idea is better than the idea that we have. Like, that's so cool. Like, I want to go back and reshoot some stuff, but they couldn't reshoot things. There's a million things you can do, and then there's a few things you can do all at the same time because so much stuff has been done. But it's hard to do. Like, Spider-Verse was such a good Spider-Man. It was such a groundbreaking animated film, it's hard for me to work in animation now. When I have worked on an animated film since then, it's hard because so much animation that's done is just so basic and it's the same stuff we've seen over and over and over again. And then you see something like Spider-Verse and you're like, whoa, like I want to work on something like that. It's so cool. And so I was a little worried about No Way Home before it came out because I was like, oh, are we going to be able to at least be equal to that? Like, it's like being a band in a big concert and you come out after the warm-up band and the warm-up band was better than you or something, and you're like, oh, now I got to try to top that. I've seen that happen before, and it's a sad situation. But so I was really happy when the movie came out and people loved it and it did so well. It's a little different, obviously. It doesn't want to be the same thing as Spider-Verse, but it had its own take on the whole multiverse and all of that business. And I think you're usually successful when you have good characters with a lot of heart, which is something I did learn in animation. You see it a lot in Pixar movies, or at least the earlier ones. I don't know about the latest ones, but that's really what it comes down to. People usually will be on board with you if you love the characters.
Absolutely.
And you feel something for the characters, and I think people felt something for those characters in that movie.
Totally. Okay, so let me translate that. Nos dice Phil de que, bueno, en todas sus películas fueron diferentes en cuanto a trabajar en Spider-Man. Por ejemplo, para Spider-Man Homecoming él tenía todo el guión completo y a partir del guión empezaron a hacer los storyboards y todas las cosas así. Para la segunda, para Far From Home, tenía medio página de guión y eso fue todo. Básicamente no tenía guión, sino que le daban ideas y hablaba con John de diferentes ideas. Por ejemplo, la secuencia de Hydro Man en Venecia, donde pelearon, la hizo en alrededor de unos 2 meses más o menos, básicamente sin guión. Nada más le decían, mira, tenemos esta idea, queremos hacer esto, y entonces le decía, bueno, podemos hacer esto, así, aquí. Y así fue básicamente. Que por ejemplo le decían al final cuando filmaron la escena, John llegó y dijo, tuvimos que borrar casi que la mitad de lo que vos hiciste porque en Venecia no tenemos mopeds, y él había pensado con mopeds hacer la secuencia. Para la tercer film, para No Way Home, no, básicamente ya no había guión, no le dieron el guión, sino que mucho era basado en ideas que le decían, en que podíamos intercambiar. Por ejemplo, en su Instagram, si van y lo ven, él habló mucho de muchas cosas que no llegaron al film, que no llegaron al final, como por ejemplo que Misterio se suponía que iba a volver y por alguna razón que no lo ha preguntado todavía, la cortaron del final de la película. También que para ese momento ya Spider-Verse ya había salido, entonces se preguntaban qué podemos hacer nuevo, diferente, que no se haya visto antes, porque es algo que en el género de superhéroes, en el género en general se ve mucho, sobre todo en Marvel, que muchas secuencias ya una vez que haces algo suele repetirse constantemente, que por ejemplo él está trabajando en una secuencia y que le dijeron, mira, no, ya eso ya se hizo en Doctor Strange, por ejemplo, y entonces, ya medio trabajo en la secuencia y no, va para la basura, vamos de nuevo porque ya algo que se hizo, entonces es algo que es algo muy peligroso porque se suele repetir mucho, entonces siempre hay que estar tratando de inventarse y contar cosas nuevas o maneras de contar cosas nuevas. Que con alrededor, él no puede saber, digamos, por ejemplo, cuando trabaja en una nueva película, al momento de terminar de trabajar en una película, faltan todavía como 2 años para que la película salga, porque viene la filmación, viene postproducción y todo eso, entonces normalmente no se acuerda mucho al momento de hacer la película de lo que ya había hecho antes. Entonces, pasa que, por ejemplo, para No Way Home había muchos otros artistas visuales trabajando en ella, que él tuvo la dicha de ser el único que estuvo trabajando en las 3 de Spider-Man de Tom Holland, pero fue más como por fortuito, como fue más como por suerte, que él estaba trabajando en otro proyecto, terminó el otro proyecto y dijeron, mira, puedes venir a trabajar un poquito en esta, y puedes irse a darte un aporte, no era como el principal, sino que lo llamaban para terminar ciertas cosas, ciertos ajustes, y que tuvo la suerte de estar trabajando en esas 3. que también le encantan lo que son las teorías de los fans, que él se iba a leerlas, a ver los videos, a ver todo esto, y que dice que si usted está trabajando en esta industria y no disfruta los fans de las teorías, que ¿para qué está aquí, verdad? Que para qué no. Y entonces las veía y él se le llamaba al coproductor y decía, mira esta teoría, está buenísima, esta idea está mejor que la que tenemos nosotros, pero ya no podemos refirmar todo, rehacerlo todo. Y entonces que él se divertía mucho comparando las ideas de la gente, porque con una Way Home hubo demasiada especulación de qué es lo que iba a poder pasar, de que se iban a salir los 6 siniestros, de que se iban a salir los 3 Peter, etc. Y tenía un miedo de que, porque como ya un poco antes había salido Spider-Man y fue una película tan querida y tan aceptada, de que iba a ser, de que, ay, ¿será que nuestra película va a estar al menos a la altura, verdad? Que lo compara como cuando el telonero de un concierto se jala un chivo increíble, un conciertazo, y ya viene la banda principal y dice, no, ¿para qué salimos? Ya ellos se robaron el show, ¿verdad? Entonces, de esa misma situación, pero que él está muy feliz de que la gente le haya gustado mucho, que le haya amado, y que cree que uno de los secretos a nivel para hacer estas películas y para hacer este tipo de historias, contar historias, es tener buenos personajes que tengan con mucho corazón, que eso es básicamente una fórmula de éxito. Si se ve en animación, se ve en live action, que si el personaje está bien construido y la gente se relaciona muy bien con ese personaje, todo lo demás cae por su propio peso, por decirlo así. Y John, ya no está ganando el tiempo, ya son las 9, Dios mío. Estás dormido, John, no te escuchamos.
Tenemos que correr. Yo creo que un par de preguntas más.
Guys, we are running out of time because it's already 9 p.m. for us in Costa Rica, so we have like one or two questions, right? You're good with that?
Yeah.
That's fine.
O si quieren se pueden quedar aquí hablando, nosotros no tenemos problema.
Démosle a ver, John, un par más.
Ahora hay mucha cosa con la inteligencia artificial que está produciendo todo lo que uno le proponga producir. Entonces, ¿qué piensan ellos acerca de esta nueva forma de dibujar o de crear y cómo atenta contra el trabajo de ellos?
Okay, this is a tricky question. In short, what is your opinion about AI? Because we know that AI came and it's another, like we were talking about with Phil about change. Now this is making the people to see that doing your job is easy when it's not, obviously. But people are thinking, oh no, it's just easy, just AI, and they do it for you. But it's not. So, what are your thoughts on that? And are you worried about it, or what can you expect about that?
I feel like for like the past couple months, all we've been hearing about is AI, and it's I wouldn't say it's something to be scared of necessarily, just because the thing that we do, like literally what Phil said was that we put heart into our craft and into our art, and I feel like AI it doesn't have that. Like we can do whatever that we want for it to create, but like we're ultimately making the decisions. We're ultimately figuring out ideas that can really bring the new projects and new establishments that people love, and I feel like that's what it's missing for sure, is that it can't really replace our thought process and what we can create. It could take from a whole bunch of stuff, but it necessarily can't copy what we put into it, because we sit down 10-12 hours working on something consistently and really trying to get our ideas out, and for something to be generated within minutes, it's just not the same.
Right. And you guys?
Phil?
I'll try to be really short because I know I've been really long-winded and sucked the oxygen out of the room every time. Then I make you have to translate it all. But I've thought about it a little bit. It's a question mark, but I'm not really worried about it for storyboards, because I actually downloaded it and I tried it. I'm like, how do you do this with storyboards? I don't even know how you would start doing this. I guess you would do it. I don't know. It just seems like it would be more work than it's worth. and you'd have to rejigger it so much that it would just I don't know, maybe eventually it'll get there, but I think for concepts and games it's a little bit different. But even then, I don't know. I think I had this whole discussion with John Watts. Actually, we were actually talking about it one day, a month ago, and we were kind of saying like what AI does is it scours all the most popular things out there. It takes pieces from all the most popular things. So what you end up with is everything ends up looking the same in AI.
Yeah.
Same color palette, same kind of weird design shapes. There's nothing unique about it. It all starts looking the same, like it's coming from the same one artist. And so what you end up with is kind of not really anything. You get a lot of nothing. And don't get me wrong, like young artists will come out of college and they'll study this stuff. And it's always the young people that will figure out how to use it in the best way possible. And then the old guys like me will have to sort of catch up to it. And so that's where I think it's but it'll be the artists that figure it out. It's not gonna be some random person. When digital photography came out, it was the same thing. Oh, photographers aren't going to have a job. But the difference between a photographer and a regular person, I could take 1 million pictures. And I'm not going to call myself a pro photographer because my pictures, what do they mean? Whereas a professional photographer, an artist, will be able to look at something and say, I'm going to photograph that in a way that says this is from me. And people will recognize it. And that's the difference, And AI, no matter what you do, AI can't really replicate that unless it's done by a person and they have a specific thing in mind. And then it becomes, but artists are like, at a certain level, you're kind of stealing from artists. Like, so an artist doesn't necessarily, there was a photographer recently, they photographed all these photographs, submitted it for a contest, and they won. And they said, no, this is AI photography, and I'm not accepting the award. And he rejected it, and it became a big story about what's moral and what's not moral, and what's right and what's not right, and what art is and what art isn't. So it's going to be a question for a while. Previs was the same when it came along. Storyboard artists thought previs was going to take their jobs, and what ended up happening was it has its limitations. Executives don't like to look at previs animation; they like to look at storyboards, and so there was ended up being kind of enough work for everybody in the end, anyway. So it's just a technological shift. Where it's going to end up, nobody knows. But that's my take on it.
Awesome.
Good take.
Jared.
Yeah, I'm with Phil on a lot of it, and also with Omar on it too. I've seen people, use it, and they're doing really extraordinary, mind-bending stuff. But I think that's the individual, not the tool. I've seen just as much generic, sludge churned out by people just prompting in the same things. But then every so often you see someone use it and you're like, oh my God, like, holy crap. So it is a little terrifying. The thing that's always scared me about it is its potential for misinformation or propaganda, deep fakes. That stuff is more, potential for Skynet. That stuff is more. Yeah, that's the stuff that keeps me up at night. Not necessarily art generators, but there are exciting potential things happening, medical breakthroughs, technological breakthroughs that can happen with this technology. On the art side of things, yeah, they stole it all, and that's the only, like, when I see it, I get sad because I'm like, yeah, they trained on all our data to replace us. Like, of course we're not happy about that. So I think on that ethical level, what they did was wrong. They knew it was wrong because they chose not to train on music. So now they're doing it, and music is suing them. So there's lawsuits happening
Yeah.
The Copyright Office is currently making their assessments and changes, and again, it's all a question mark. But I've seen directors post mid-journey images, so it's like that kind of leaves me out of the job with that director. But it will. I think it will create another generation of people who use AI and like get excited about traditional art because they're like, how do you make real art? So that's the optimist in me. So I weigh all of it very heavily.
Yeah, I think it's affecting concept artists more than a lot of other people in the art world.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Bueno, nos cuentan ellos de que en realidad no se sienten atemorizados por esta nueva tecnología porque es como que les falta corazón, ¿verdad? Como que hay cosas que no puede reemplazar ese toque humano, ese tren de pensamiento, ese reemplazar esa manera de tomar decisiones, de llegar a sacar una idea de la nada, jamás lo va a poder reemplazar, que tal vez puede hacer mucho su trabajo, sí es cierto, pero no reemplazarlo del todo. En el caso de Phil nos dice que no está para nada preocupado por eso, porque siente que es más el trabajo que la ganancia de utilizar esto, por ejemplo, para hacer storyboards, porque más bien usted tiene que llegar después y limpiar toda esa basura, entonces, ¿por qué no mejor lo hace desde cero usted solo? Y que todo empieza a verse muy similar, digamos, cuando usas estas herramientas, porque todo se inspira de las mismas bases de datos, de las mismas imágenes, de los mismos artistas. Entonces, al final, terminas con un montón de nada, porque todo se parece, todo es muy similar, y que tal vez ahorita no es el momento en que vamos a descubrir cómo sacarle el mejor provecho a este tipo de herramientas, sino que va a ser las nuevas generaciones que ya lo van a venir conociéndolas desde su primer año de estudio. Ellos son los que van a saber cómo de verdad utilizarlo, y que ya la gente que ya está más adentro de una carrera más bien va a aprender a partir de la gente joven de cómo utilizarlo y cómo sacarle el jugo. Que es lo mismo que pasó, por ejemplo, cuando vino la fotografía digital, de que mucha gente decía, ay, bueno, ahora ya todos somos fotógrafos, ya los fotógrafos se van a morir, y no fue así, porque usted puede tomar 1000 fotos, pero nunca van a tener la calidad o el profesionalismo o el encuadre o el enfoque o la marca de un fotógrafo profesional, que es lo que es lo mismo que pasa. Además de que mucha gente también está considerando que esto puede ser como un robo, ¿verdad? Porque se basa en artes de otras personas. Entonces, por ejemplo, cuando ganaron una competición a punta de fotografías generadas por inteligencia artificial, dijeron, no me dé el premio, yo no me merezco esto, porque si no estaría robándole a otras personas. Y es algo que también pasó en la industria del cine, cuando vino la previsualización, que decían, bueno, ahora todo se hace en computadora, en previsualización, entonces ya los storyboards y los concept art van a morir. Y no, al final los dos son necesarios, los dos se mantienen. No es, y lo interesante aquí, o el que va a tener como por decirlo así, el poder que nos dice Jared en la mano es el individuo, no es la herramienta, porque si el individuo sabe utilizar la herramienta bien, va a ser una cosa que se le va a sacar mucho provecho, porque usted puede ver 1000 productos hechos a base de inteligencia artificial, que todos son basura básicamente, pero va a llegar una persona que lo va a saber cómo utilizar y va a sacar algo muy bueno de ello. Y es ahí donde se diferencia, porque va a ser como él lo ve como que puede haber una segunda vertiente, como la vertiente de la gente que hace las cosas con inteligencia artificial y la gente que hace las cosas a los tanto antiguos, ¿verdad? Y que lo que más le preocupa en realidad no es ni siquiera a nivel artístico, sino que se use para desinformación, como los deepfakes, como para cosas que en realidad no son buenas, ¿verdad? Moral ni éticamente buenas, que esa en realidad sería su mayor preocupación, más allá de la parte artística, que esa no siente que esté en riesgo en realidad. Y para ir finalizando, yo solo tengo una última pregunta, porque ya nos vamos, ya se nos pasó demasiado el tiempo. Así que I have one last question, because we already went overboard with time. And so I'm going to do a 2-for-1 real quick for you guys. What is the character that you identify with, and what are you working on, each one? I know that you can say about a lot of your projects because NDAs, right? But whatever you can say.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes, it's a 2-for-1. What character, movie, film, superheroes, whatever, what character do you identify with most, right? You can say Marvel, you can say DC, you can say Star Wars, you can say... And what are you working on? What are your projects, your current projects right now? I know that maybe you can say your most current project because of NDA, right? But some project that you're working on.
Yeah.
I want to say a character that I identify with would probably be. I'm trying. What would I think?
It's a tough question.
That's a tough. There's so many cool characters.
I know.
There's so many cool characters.
Man.
I would want to say like Superman for some reason. Just like, you know, with this industry, you know, trying to, you know, carry the world, like as a world, I would say like, you know, your workload and like, you know, your personal time that you have, and then your work time, and your education. Like we're always learning, and you know, it's a lot to like balance, but I feel like, you know, there's ways to be able to make it work. And I think that's you know, the why I think I'm very like similar to Superman, just because Superman is just like, you know, there's so much stuff going around all the time around the world, and just like, how is he everywhere and everywhere at all this time, you know? I definitely would say that's a character I relate to. As much as work, I can't really talk about that, but you know, I'm always bettering myself. I'm currently, you know, updating my portfolio, you know, learning different softwares, learning different skills like storyboarding. I want to add that to my skill set. 3D modeling, I want to add that to my skill set. So I'm always learning and always, you know, adding to my skills just to make more opportunities come about.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Omar. Bueno, él dice, se identifica con Superman porque, bueno, que es una pregunta difícil, pero que Superman, porque es de esas personas que usted se pregunta, ¿cómo es siempre, con tanto que pasa en el mundo, cómo él siempre está ahí? ¿Cómo que siempre está enterado de todo y está salvando todas las situaciones y siempre está dependiente? Que entonces es algo que lo cual él se identifica mucho, de siempre estar en todas las cosas a la vez, y que de trabajo no puede decir mucho, pero que sí está siempre mejorando, siempre entrenando, siempre aprendiendo mucho, aprendiendo storyboards de modelado 3D para mejorar su currículum y que nuevas oportunidades salgan. Así que increíble, ¿verdad, Omar? Jared, Phil, what about you?
You go ahead, Jared.
Well, I was, I don't know. I guess that's such a hard question. But man, I'm looking at my Lord of the Rings poster, so I'm just thinking Samwise Gamgee right there. The secret hero, maybe. I don't know. It's a very, very hard question, but that's the first one that keeps popping to mind. As far as projects go, can't talk about that, but one of my personal side projects is I'm working on a children's book. So,
Nice.
Yeah, and hoping after Monsterpalooza that's going to be my like prime driving focus.
Nice.
Bueno, Janet dice que es una pregunta súper difícil, que ahorita está viendo su póster de los anillos, entonces dice que Samwise Gamgee es el personaje que se identifica más, que es el héroe silencioso, el héroe que nadie sabe dónde está, que trata de pensarlo y dice el que se le viene a la mente, entonces que cree que ese es su personaje que más se identifica, y que ahorita de trabajo obviamente no puede decirnos mucho por sus contratos, pero que en su trabajo personal está ahorita trabajando en un libro para niños, que entonces espera que después de tantos monstruos en su vida pueda sacar ese libro para niños. Y Phil?
Yeah, I never thought about that before, so it was like, that was a hard one. I'm like,
Yeah.
And then I was thinking of King Kong. I worked on Kong Skull Island, so I'm kind of like, oh yeah, Kong. I think.
Yeah.
I think Kong is actually, he's kind of an introvert.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Agree.
Yeah.
He's kind of an introvert, and if you get on his bad side, he's gonna have to be in a bad mood. I play ice hockey sometimes, so I'm one of those people that's nice off the ice, and then on the ice I'll murder you if I have to. But yeah, so I love King Kong, actually. I love that character. He's got a lot of heart too. But and then the second part of the question, what was the second part again?
Your current works or projects.
What am I working on? I'm on Marvel Thunderbolts, right now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's an interesting project. For me, it feels very different from the other things I've worked on. I can't talk about it too much. Obviously, Marvel's
Sure,
very,
sure.
but I think it'll come out a year and a half or so, summertime. Hopefully, well, it depends on the writer's strike, I guess. So yeah, I'm working on that. Personal project. I've been working on this project called Liberation Day for years now, and I'm hoping to eventually get that off the ground one day. You can see little clips of it on my Instagram. I did a comic book of it, first issue, and then just with work and everything, it's just so hard to find time to do more issues. So I've got one, but I'd like to do a lot more. But it's just finding time. Comic books are hard.
Sure, nice,
Time consuming, and but I love doing them. They're so much fun.
Yeah.
It's just finding the time, is the hardest part. So,
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And just, I know you can say anything about Thunderbolts, but just that you say that it's very different from your previous works, it gives me hope.
Well, it's different. you can go online and you can see who the characters are.
Yeah.
And none of them. I'm just gonna say none of them fly.
Only that is totally different. All right, awesome.
You don't have like special powers. It's a challenge. It's fun. It's a challenge. Characters are cool, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Bueno, nos dice Fielder que su personaje favorito se identifica mucho con King Kong porque trabajó en Kong Skull Island y que siente que cree que Kong es un introvertido como él, entonces que siente esa identificación de que es un carajo tranquilo, un carajo pacífico que si lo agarra de mal te puede matar, entonces que se siente identificado en esa relación con Kong. Y que sobre sus trabajos ahorita que está trabajando es para Marvel, está trabajando actualmente en Thunderbolts, que siento que va a ser algo muy diferente de lo que he trabajado antes. Por ejemplo, que ninguno de ellos vuela, con eso es diferente, pero que van a tener sus superpoderes. Y que en su proyecto personal estaba trabajando en un comic book que se llama Liberation Day, que lo pueden ver en su Instagram también, buscarlo por ahí, que le encantaría poder seguir trabajando en él, pero el problema no es las ganas, sino el tiempo, que los demás proyectos les demandan demasiado tiempo, entonces no es tanto por falta de ganas, sino por tiempo, que es un proyecto personal que le apasiona mucho. Yo creo que estamos, Yonder. ¿Algo de está para despedirnos?
Para nosotros, bueno, para mí personalmente fue un placer tener a tres grandes de la animación, de cada uno en su diferente trabajo y saber que hay gente tan buena y que tiene tantas historias para contar que ojalá y nos podamos reunir pues dentro de poco o tal vez para una próxima temporada y escucharlos a cada uno con sus historias porque se ve que tienen mucho que hablar y yo podría citar a mi héroe favorito que es el Capitán América y decirles que puedo hacer esto todo el día. y me gustaría, ojalá que nos envíen ahí cuando haya información que ellos nos quieran compartir, que nos la manden y nosotros pues también compartirla aquí en el canal, tanto en Café Geek como en el Consejo, pues, para que la gente también sepa que todos nuestros invitados siguen trabajando y se mantengan al tanto. De mi parte, un placer, muy buenas noches y de verdad muy, muy agradecido, lo mejor de los éxitos.
Claro que sí. So I'm going to translate Jonder's part and talking also about from myself as well. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a blast having you guys. You've been so amazing artists, each and every one of you in your own area, and hearing all these stories, checking them out, and seeing them that is something very aligning to us, and something that we are fans and we don't always, or we don't used to hear these stories from you guys because people are, the director, the actor, but you are also stars, the stars that make this work possible. So thank you so much. About the Captain America, he says that he can do this all day.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And also, if you want to share with us in the future at any time about your projects, not obviously like big studios projects, those as well, but if you want to share with us, for example, your personal projects and give us for us to share with the world and give you more spotlight, right? We are very happy to share about all your personal projects as well with our followers. So it's been an honor. Thank you so much, Jared, Omar, Phil. You're really, really amazing guys.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks
Yeah,
for
Guys.
you know, it was
Yeah.
great.
Cheers.
I really appreciate it.
Great
All right.
meeting you guys. Yeah.
Hope to have you for a second season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much. See you guys.
Yeah.
Bye bye. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Y ahí estamos, Yonder, de verdad. Qué genios, ¿verdad? Grandes, grandes. genios.
Thunderbolts, man, los Thunderbolts.
¿Viste?
Se vienen. No, y
Y
todos. Qué gente más tuanis, man.
no, súper amable, súper tuanis. Y tenemos por acá, porque tenemos invitado dentro de 15 días pero es que no paramos, vieron los invitados que tenemos. Espérate, ¿dónde está aquí? Es que soy nuevo usando esta herramienta, entonces tengo que encontrar aquí
Tranquilo,
dónde era la
tranquilo.
vaina. Aquí está. Vamos a ponerles para que la gente que nos está siguiendo ponga atención lo que tenemos por acá. Ahí está, tenemos nada más y nada menos que un ganador del Oscar. Vamos a ponerlo otra vez ahí en pantalla. Aldrin Morrow, él es artista de maquillaje de Hollywood, es ganador del Oscar por The Whale, en las pasadas entregas de los premios Oscar, ganó Oscar a Mejor Maquillaje por su trabajo con Brendan Fraser en The Whale, así que para que no se lo pierdan, esto será el lunes 15 de mayo a la misma hora por el mismo canal. Yonder, ¿cómo lo ves?
Mae, se imagina un ganador del Oscar. Es que no es cualquier persona ahí que usted dice, madre, le voy a poner un correo y que me. No. Es un ganador del Oscar. No es nada más y nada menos que una persona que estuvo ahí con Brendan Fraser, que le hizo todo ese maquillaje. Y de verdad, vamos cada día subiendo más. Yo no sé cómo hacen ustedes para conseguir un nuevo nivel, pero cada vez que anunciamos un invitado, hay un nuevo nivel por superar y más, de verdad, mis respetos para ustedes y ojalá que nos acompañe muchísima gente porque vamos y vamos creciendo poquito a poquito en este pequeño proyecto.
Así es, así que ya lo saben, dentro de 15 días nos vemos con el Gran Moret, ganador del Oscar, y viera los que tenemos ahí ya en fila, ¿verdad? Que la gente no sabe, pero
Y es que
para que
no
estén
se
ahí pendientes,
imaginan,
para que estén ahí pendientes,
tienen que
¿verdad?
seguirnos
Que
y
seguirnos en las páginas en todas las
echarle
redes de
ganas.
Café Geek, también en Consejo Geek, ahí estamos en todo, entonces, muchas gracias por acompañarnos en una edición más de Breaking the Ice, Yonder, muy buenas noches, gracias por estar aquí con nosotros, nos vemos
Un
dentro de
placer,
15
Alberto,
días,
compartir con usted.
igualmente, así que nos vemos, muchas gracias, chao.
Nos vemos en Comic Con también.
Uy, sí, Comic Con, ahí vamos a estar.